All right, so we're going to take notes over increasing and decreasing real quick. Before I talk about increasing and decreasing, I also want to cover how to find the vertex, and then domain and range are just going to always be here. So when we're looking at the vertex is either the lowest or the highest point, depending on if the graph has been reflected or not. So in this case, the vertex is the lowest point, and it's right here. So my vertex is at -2, -1. Make that thinner so I don't write so big. So for increasing and decreasing, the first thing we need to know is these are arrows, even though Desmos doesn't put them on there for me. Increasing and decreasing intervals, so increase is where the graph looks like it's running uphill. Decreasing is where the graph looks like it's running downhill. So just like in English you read a book left to right. In math, when we're reading a graph, we read it left to right as well. So I'm going to start at the far left point over here, and then I'm just going to travel along the graph. So if you notice this first part, I'm running downhill on the graph, which means that this first part of the graph is decreasing because it's running downhill. So since the first part of the graph is decreasing, we're going to write the decreasing interval first. So decreasing is anywhere the graph is running downhill. And when you're stating increasing and decreasing intervals, you're telling me the x values where that word is true. The very important piece is it's the x values where that is true. So if you look at this, the graph starts, quote unquote, starts with an arrow, which means that the graph starts decreasing at -infinity. Because it's an arrow, the graph, quote unquote, starts at -infinity because it goes on forever in the infinite direction, in the -infinity direction. The graph stops decreasing right here at an x value of -2. And when we're doing increasing and decreasing intervals, we're always going to use regular parentheses. Now for increasing intervals, you're still reading the graph left to right. So we said the first half, or at the beginning, it was decreasing because it was running downhill. But the second half of the graph is increasing because it's running uphill, right? So since the second half is increasing, this graph starts increasing at the x value of 2, which is the x value of the vertex. And because the graph stops or finishes with an arrow on the right side, the graph continues increasing until infinity. I mean, even though it doesn't really stop, but we're going to say the endpoint's infinity. So that's increasing and decreasing. The range is our y value, so we're going to put the smallest y value first. And the smallest y value on this graph, let me erase what I've drawn. So the smallest y value on this graph is -1. It goes up forever. So the largest is infinity. Infinity is always parentheses. And since the -1 y value is a closed dot, that means the -1 is included. Therefore, we use square brackets. If you don't remember that, you can go back and look at domain and range notations video from Unit 1. Do 2 examples. So again, I said the vertex is either the highest or the lowest point. So in this case, the vertex is the highest point, and it's at 1, 4. Then again, we're going to do increasing and decreasing. So just like in English, like I said on the last slide, you start at the far left and you read left to right. So at the far left, we see an arrow. There should be an arrow here and here. So at the far left, we see an arrow, and then as we trace our way along the graph, it looks like we're running uphill. So the first section in this case is increasing. So we start increasing at -infinity because the graph goes left forever, and then we stop increasing at that x value of the vertex of +1. then we start decreasing at the vertex. So we start decreasing at an x value of 1, and then we stop decreasing at positive infinity because it is also an arrow. So increasing is where the graph is running uphill, decreasing is where the graph is running downhill, and you read the graph from left to right, just like you normally would, and the key here is you're telling me the x values where the given word is true. The x values. So just to practice range one more time, ranges are y values. So if you look, the lowest y value on this graph is an arrow, so that means the lowest y value is negative infinity. And then the highest y value on this graph is 4, because that's the vertex, and it's a closed dot, so we're going to use a square bracket.